A journey long through paths unknown aboard.
All right, welcome back to the Prima.Law podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the recent updates to the naturalization test. Now, these will take effect after October 18th, 2025, increasing the number of questions and the complexity in order to obtain U.S. citizenship. As always, we are brought to you by Prima.Law. So that is immigration case management for immigration professionals. Now, Prima.Law is an awesome legal case management system complete with all the tools you need to run your practice. We're talking billing, e-payments, sending questionnaires. We have a client portal for updates that your client can get directly from you in a secure manner. All the things you're going to need, and especially for immigration attorneys, because we have our immigration library full of all of the forms, the case types, the templates. Everything comes pre-populated. So you literally have to just put in your client's information and autofill all the forms, and then use package assembly to put that together, or use our convenient e-filing features. Find a free trial at www.prima.law. Now, let's begin the show.
Today, we're really going to get into something important. The big changes coming to the U.S. Naturalization Civics Test. It's a pretty significant overhaul.
It really is. More than just tweaking it, they're restructuring the whole approach. So our goal today is to give you a clear roadmap what's changing, who it affects, when it starts, and importantly, how those exemptions work.
Yeah, those exemptions are key. And it helps to understand the context, right? USCIS keeps mentioning naturalization as a privilege, focusing on ensuring applicants are fully assimilated and committed to U.S. values.
That framing really explains why they're making the test, well, harder. Longer, broader scope, it all points to wanting a higher level of demonstrated knowledge and commitment.
Okay, so before we dive deep into the test itself, maybe let's quickly recap the other hoops someone has to jump through for citizenship. The test is just one piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. So the real basics first. You generally need to be at least 18 years old. And you need to be a lawful permanent resident, have a green card for typically 5 years.
Typically 5, but it's 3 years if you're married to a U.S. citizen, correct?
Exactly. 3 years, provided you've been living with your U.S. citizen spouse that whole time.
And it's not just about having the green card for that time.
Yeah.
You actually have to be here physically.
Yes, that's crucial. Continuous residence and physical presence. For the 5-year rule, you need to show you were physically in the U.S. for at least 30 months, roughly half the time. Too much time outside the country can cause big problems.
Okay. And then there's the big one. Good moral character. Seems like USCIS is really focusing on this lately.
They absolutely are. You have to demonstrate good moral character for that whole statutory period, the 5 years, 3 years, right before you apply. And yes, the reviews are definitely stricter now. They're looking very closely at things that maybe seemed minor before, but could suggest someone doesn't respect U.S. laws.
Like what specifically? Are there things they're really flagging?
Yeah, definitely. Things like registering to vote when you weren't eligible, or actually voting unlawfully, or ever making a false claim to being a U.S. citizen. Those are huge red flags now, often leading to denial.
Wow.
Even, smaller criminal issues are getting a much harder look. It ties into their stated goal of restoring integrity to the process.
Okay, makes sense. And finally, the English requirement. Do applicants need to be totally fluent?
No, thankfully not fluency. It's about demonstrating a basic ability to read, write, and speak English. You usually show this during the interview itself, just talking with the officer.
Got it. So that basic English ability, plus knowing U.S. history and government, that's the civics part. And that's where things are really changing.
Precisely. Let's break down exactly how this 2025 test raises the difficulty level. Because really, the timing of when you file your application is everything now.
Okay, timing. What's the critical date everyone needs to know? The N400 filing date.
October 20th, 2025. That's the line in the sand. If you file your N400, your naturalization application, on or after October 20th, 2025, you will take the new, harder 2025 test.
And if you file before that date?
File before October 20th, and you'll take the current test, the 2008 version.
Which is a huge difference, as we're about to see. Okay, so let's talk study materials. What's changed in the actual content bank?
The pool of questions has grown quite a bit. The 2008 test used a bank of 100 questions. The new 2025 test uses a bank of 128 questions.
128. Okay. That's nearly a 30% increase in the material you have to potentially know Is it mostly overlap or lots of new stuff?
It's a mix. They say about 75% is carried over from the old test, but that means 25%, a quarter of the material, is brand new content. And it seems designed, like we said, to cover U.S. history and government more broadly, really testing a deeper understanding.
Right, aligning with that deeper commitment idea.
Yeah.
So more material to study. How does that play out in the actual interview, the oral test?
This is probably the biggest structural change and where the difficulty really ramps up. Under the old 2008 test, the officer asked you 10 questions from the bank. For the new 2025 test, the officer will ask you 20 questions, double the amount.
20 questions asked. Wow. That feels like a much longer, more stressful experience. And the passing score, did that go up too?
It did, proportionally. To pass the new test, you need to answer 12 questions correctly out of the 20 asked.
So double the questions asked, and you need double the correct answers, 12 instead of 6. That's a significant jump in difficulty.
It really is.
Now, I remember there was a version in 2020 that was briefly used, and people complained because the officer had to ask all the questions, even if you passed early on. Is there any change there?
Yes, thankfully they learned from that. This 2025 version brings back a more efficient approach. The officer will stop the test as soon as you either pass.
Get 12 right.
Exactly, get 12 correct, or as soon as you fail.
Which would be?
Missing 9 questions. If you get 9 wrong, the test stops, and unfortunately you failed that attempt.
Okay, so they don't drag it out unnecessarily once the result is clear.
Yeah.
That's at least a small procedural mercy, even if the test itself is much harder.
Right. It streamlines the interview process a bit, which is good for everyone involved.
Okay, so given this jump in difficulty, more material, double the questions, double the passing score, those exemptions must be looking pretty attractive right now.
They're more valuable than ever, absolutely. Especially for long-term residents or those with certain medical conditions.
Let's talk about the language waivers first. You hear about the 50-20 and 55-Alpine rules. What's the logic there?
The basic idea is that if someone has lived here as a lawful permanent resident for a very long time, USCIS acknowledges their integration and offers a waiver for the English language part of the test.
Makes sense. So the 50-20 rule.
If you are 50 years old or older and you've been a lawful permanent resident in LPR for at least 20 years,
okay,
then you don't have to take the test in English. You can take the civics test in your native language. You do need to bring a qualified interpreter with you, though.
Right, the interpreter is key. And the 5555 rule, is that similar?
Very similar, just slightly different numbers. If you're 55 years old or older and you've been in LPR for at least 15 years, you also qualify for the native language option, again, with an interpreter.
Got it. So those help with the English barrier. But what about the civics content itself? Is there any break for older long-term residents there?
Yes, there is, and it's quite significant. This is the 65-20 rule.
Okay, 65-20, what does that involve?
If you are 65 years old or older and you've been in LPR for at least 20 years, you get special consideration on the civics test content.
How so?
Instead of studying the full bank of 128 questions, you only need to study a much smaller, specific list of 20 questions. These are usually marked with an asterisk in the official study materials.
Just 20 questions to study, that's a huge reduction. And how does the test itself work for them?
It's also simplified. The officer will only ask them 10 questions from that list of 20. And to pass, they only need to get 6 questions right.
So it's basically like the old 2008 test structure, 10 asked, 6 needed, but with a much smaller pool of questions to learn.
Exactly. It makes it much more manageable for older applicants who meet those long residency requirements.
Okay, that's very helpful. What about the medical exemption, the disability waiver for both English and civics?
This is available if an applicant has a documented physical or developmental disability or a mental impairment that actually prevents them from being able to learn or demonstrate knowledge of English and civics.
Prevents them. That sounds like a high bar.
It is, and USCIS seems to be scrutinizing these waivers more closely now, tying back to that integrity focus. It's not automatic.
So what do people need to provide? How do you prove that?
You absolutely need solid medical documentation. Form N648, filled out by a licensed medical doctor, osteopathic doctor, or clinical psychologist. And that form needs to clearly explain the diagnosis, how it affects the applicant's ability to learn or remember the material required for the tests. Just having a condition isn't enough. The link to the inability to meet the test requirements has to be clear.
Right, the connection is critical. So thorough documentation is non-negotiable there.
Definitely. Expect USCIS to review that documentation very carefully.
Okay, this all leads perfectly into strategy. With that October 20th, 2025 deadline clearly marked, What's the takeaway for people who might be eligible to apply right now?
The strategy is pretty clear-cut. If you are eligible for naturalization now, you should seriously consider filing your N-400 application before October 20th, 2025.
To get locked into the old test system.
Exactly. Filing before that date means you'll take the 2008 version, 10 questions asked, need 6 right, study bank of 100. It's just structurally less demanding than the new 2025 version.
Is there enough time?
Mm-hmm.
How quickly are these N-400s actually being processed? Can someone realistically file now and expect to get the old test?
Right now, yes. Processing times for naturalization have actually been relatively quick compared to some other immigration benefits. It's not guaranteed, of course, but many people are getting interview notices within, say, roughly 3 months or so.
Oh.
So if someone is eligible today or becomes eligible quite soon, filing promptly gives them a very good chance of being scheduled for their interview and taking the 2008 test before the switchover is fully implemented for everyone filing after the deadline. Waiting until after October 20th guarantees you the harder test.
That seems like a really crucial piece of advice.
Okay,
so we've talked about the mechanics, the dates, the exemptions. Let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier, that USCIS justification about assimilation and commitment. It does raise an interesting question, one that pops up in the background materials sometimes. If the average American citizen already living here might struggle to pass this civics test, why make it so much harder for new citizens?
Yeah, that's the inherent tension, isn't it? The law itself, the Immigration and Nationality Act, requires applicants to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the fundamentals of the history and of the principles and form of government of the United States.
So the requirement is baked into the law.
It is. And USCIS's perspective seems to be that this test is the mechanism to ensure that legal requirement is met meaningfully. They might argue that citizenship brings significant rights and responsibilities, voting, jury duty, full participation. So by making the test more comprehensive, they feel they're better ensuring that newly naturalized citizens are truly prepared to exercise those responsibilities knowledgeably right from the start.
So it's setting an aspirational standard for new citizens, perhaps higher than what's expected day to day from those born here.
That's one way to look at it. It definitely highlights the difference between just having citizenship and being an actively informed citizen. The test aims to push applicants towards the latter.
It really makes you think about what baseline civic knowledge should be. Okay, let's try to wrap this up with the key takeaways.
All right. The main things to remember. The naturalization civics test is getting significantly harder, starting for applications filed on or after October 20th, 2025.
Right.
The study material is bigger, 128 questions. The test itself is longer, 20 questions asked. And the passing score is higher. You need 12 correct answers.
So preparation is absolutely more critical now than before.
Without a doubt. And if you're eligible now, timing your filing before that October 20th date could make a big difference, letting you take the easier 2008 test.
And don't forget those exemptions. Check carefully if the 50/20 or 55/15 language waivers apply, or the really helpful 65/20 special consideration for civics content if you're 65 or older with 20 years of residency.
Exactly. And for a final thought, maybe take a look at those 128 civics questions yourself. You can find them on the USCIS website. It's actually pretty interesting to see what the government expects new citizens to know. It might make you reflect on, what constitutes essential civic knowledge for anyone participating in American democracy.
That's a great point. Food for thought for everyone. Well, thank you so much for breaking all that down for us.
My pleasure. It's crucial information right now.
Absolutely.
And that is going to do it for our presentation for you today on the updated U.S. Citizenship Test requirements. As always, we're brought to you by Prima.Law. Now, if you're listening to this, you have some interest in running an immigration practice, whether you are an attorney or some other immigration professional. We know that many states are allowing that now. So, what Prima.Law can do for you is keep all your files organized. You can stay on top of your cases. We have many automation features. We have some AI features for case review so that before that immigration application goes out in the mail or gets submitted electronically, you can make sure that it meets all the requirements and that the data is consistent and that you didn't miss a thing. Find a free trial at www.prima.law. And again, if you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, what do we have? In this podcast, in the Prima.Law podcast, we offer practice management tips. We offer updates on the law, including immigration law. And We're going to talk about the different types of visas as well, so you can become familiar and maybe start accepting new types of cases that you haven't taken before. So to get all that amazing free information from us, simply subscribe on your preferred podcast platform, including YouTube, right? We're on YouTube. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, Blue Sky we're on as well. Threads, I think you can find us there. YouTube, I said already. So yeah, please go subscribe. You'll thank me later. That's all. Bye-bye.